Hey everybody, just Mongo here, going over my Fiendsmith Yubel deck profile, as well as a combo guide. Getting back into Yubel Fiendsmith, it's a pretty fun deck. I wouldn't say it's super affordable, but it's probably cheaper than it's ever been, so. Anyway, getting into the actual deck profile, we're on one copy of Yubel, the one copy of the Terror Incarnate, and the two copies of Spirit. Spirit's interesting just because you can play one, you're fine with one, however I like playing two, just because it's a luxury thing, if you can afford the space. Next up, we're on three copies of Lotus. This is a crazy-ass starter, pretty much attributed itself to summon a Yubel from deck. We're almost always going to be summoning Spirit off of this thing. It also has a secondary effect where it's like a mini Phantom of Yubel if you control the OG Yubel. We also have one copy of Gruesome Gravescormer. You really only need one. You can play two if you want, just for like grind games, I guess, to come up. One's fine though. I play two copies of Dark Beckoning Beast and one Chaos Summoning Beast. These ratios are fine in my opinion. Dark Beckoning Beast is your least impactful normal summon of the game, because it's also the biggest hand trap magnet on the fact that Imperm and Veiler exist and will absolutely make this card unplayable if you normal summon it, and just because that secondary effect is very important, as well as the first search, if your opponent Imperms or Veilers at, you are kind of fucked. Playing one copy of Shavara. This comes up, of course, for the Unchained package. We're only playing 4 Unchained cards in the entire deck. Of course, playing the 3 copies of Engraver, the 1 Lacrima, and the 1 Fabled Lorry. This is pretty much it for our Fiendsmith engine. For main deck monsters, of course, you can get away with running 2 Engraver if you really want. Possibly even 1 if you want, but it does kind of become a brick if you open it instead of the... So that way you have something to send off a Lacrima. Obviously, having 3 Engraver, 3 Tracked is the best possible thing you can have here. Moving on to the spell traps, we're of course on 3 copies of Nightmare Throne. This thing is a starter as well as an extender. It's a crazy-ass card. On 2 copies of Nightmare Pain, you only need 2. I would not recommend running 1 just because there will be times where your opponent will out this. And you desperately need a second copy, which is where the second copy comes up, of course. It's also rechargeable with opening. This is a extender. Pretty much this thing's fucking insane. It has like 3 crazy-ass effects. I love it. We're playing 3 copies of Tracked. Just like a really good Fiendsmith card. Grab Lorry, pitch Lorry, summon it, go on the Fiendsmith line without really committing to a normal summon or anything. Really impactful. We're also 1 copy of 1-for-1, the 1 Terraforming. These are really good cards. We're playing 1 copy of Abominable Chamber of the Unchained. This is what you search off your Shavara. This is kind of required. I'm playing this over the one that pops, which I believe is called Escape of the Unchained. Just because of this card format, recurring that Unchained Soul or whatever is just really impactful, rather than just popping a card. And of course, 1 copy of Fiendsmith in Paradise. This card comes up a lot, actually. Especially if you open an Engraver, pitch it, and then get a Tracked. Where it's actually better off to send the Paradise off of your Lacrima. Moving on to non-engine. I am on 1 copy of Fubulos. However, this is not ideal. I want to play 3, but I don't have 2 other copies. So you can play 3 Fubulos if you want. You can cut it if you want. Doesn't really matter. This card is really crazy, though. We're on 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 3 copies of Troll. Very impactful, this format. I'm on 3 copies of Ghost Bell, specifically because the Bestial matchup. There's a lot of Bestial shit going on, and these are really impactful for that, and the fact that they just stop the Bestials, where it helps protect your Fiendsmith shit, your Yubel shit, stuff that you want engraved. This is very important in my opinion. I quite like this card. It's also pretty decent against the Malice matchup as well. We're on 3 copies of Imperm, and 1 each of Callby and Triple Tactics Talent. I'm at 45 copies. If you really want to cut it down, you could cut like these 3 cards if you really wanted to. You could probably cut the Ghost Bells if you wanted to put them inside. I think Ghost Bell is good enough this format to really be in main, in my opinion, especially if you want a light and dark heavy deck like this. Moving on to the extra deck here. We're of course only 1 copy of Phantom, the Desiree, Princess, and the Arrow Eater. I really don't go into Arrow Eater too much. It rarely comes up anymore on the fact that you're better off going into your Fiendsmith line rather than making this thing off a sequence. One copy of Caesar, the one Vardros, the one Moon, the Requiem, Sequence, Augum the Yama, Rage, Muckraker, Albao, and the SP. This is pretty much a very tight extra deck. There's not a whole lot I would really want to cut. Maybe cut the Arrow Eaters, because it rarely comes up. I've had very few games where Arrow Eater actually comes up, in my opinion, that it's better to go into Arrow Eater. But this extra is fairly tight, in my opinion. The only real colorable card, in my opinion, is probably the Arrow Eater. Moving on to the side deck, this is just personally what I have for like my locals and shit. Of course, 3 copies of Nib, 3 Lancia, 3 copies of Thrust, 2 Droplets, Duster, Dark Ruler, D-Barrier, and Evenly. The reason why I want 2 Droplets is because it comes up occasionally, especially with Mimigul, because you can tribute the Mimiguls that are face down in your field. Really cool thing. And everything else is pretty like self-explanatory in my opinion. So yeah, let's get into a combo real quick. So this first combo is going to be your generic ass Yubel into Fiendsmith line. We have many starters for this. Of course, we have the 3 copies of Lotus. We also have the 3 copies of Nightmare Pain or Throne. We can actually skip Samsara if we have a Yubel monster and Nightmare Pain. Of course, we also have the 1-for-1 and the Terraforming. These are all our direct ways to get to Lotus, which is a decent amount. So for this, we're just going to assume that we have Lotus in our hand. We're going to start our turn by normal summoning and then activating the effect to tribute to summon a Spirit of Yubel directly from our deck. The effect of Spirit activates on summon, which allows us to add a Nightmare Pain to our hand. We're then going to activate Nightmare Pain, popping the Spirit in order to grab a copy of Squirmer. On a new chain, Spirit will activate in order to summon a copy of Yubel from anywhere. Then we'll activate Squirmer to summon and then pop our Yubel. On a new chain, Yubel will summon the Terror Incarnate. Then we'll go into our Fiendsmith line here. Going into our Closed Moon. Link the Closed Moon off for a copy of Requiem here. Requiem will activate, popping itself in order to summon a copy of Lacrima directly from the hand or deck. Lacrima on summon will then dump a Engraver. If we happen to have an Engraver in hand and already pitched it to get tracked, this is where we'll send Paralyze instead. We'll then activate Engraver in order to shuffle back Moon back into our extra deck, in order to summon it. This is where there's 2 different paths you can go here. Either you can activate the Requiem to equip to Lacrima, and then attribute that off to make a Necroquip, or you could go for the line where you just make Sequence. The Sequence line will get you to your Desiree line. Going for the Requiem to equip to Lacrima will get you to your Caesar. It depends which one you have first, whichever one you want to do. If you happen to have the ability to make Phantom as soon as possible, then you make Phantom and don't really worry about the Caesar line. However, if you don't have access to Phantom at this moment, I think the Caesar line is better. For simplicity's sake, we're just going to go with the Fiendsmith line right now. Making the Sequence. Sequence will activate, shuffling back our 3 copies of our Fiendsmith cards back into the deck in order to summon a copy of Desiree. Then we'll link those 2 off to make a Augum Day. Augum Day will activate, summoning back the Desiree, and then equipping itself. Then we're going to activate Sequence to equip to that. Now it cannot be targeted. And now it's also at 5800 attack, which is very powerful. After that, we have a couple more things we can do with the gas right now. Of course, we can make ourselves a Phantom at any point. We can also revive with the Squirmer. This deck also does a lot more because there's a ton of extension with it, with different cards and different shit you can do. So it's just like pretty much like the tip of the iceberg here. There's plenty of things that you can do. I think at this moment, though, we're just going to make a copy of Phantom by shuffling these 2 back into the deck. And that's pretty much it. Of course, you can do other stuff, like doing the Squirmer and all that, just because there is so much extension in this deck. But for the absolute bare minimum, this is what the deck does. I've had headboards where you end on like Phantom, like Desiree, there's like the Unchained stuff, the Albao. It is a pretty cracked board if it has enough extension to it, which isn't very hard to get to be honest. Alright, let's assume that we actually don't have a way to get to Spirit. Let's say that we have literally a Dark Beckoning Beast, and any other discard can be literally anything. So ideally, we're going to normal summon our copy of Dark Beckoning Beast, activate the effect, in order to search ourselves a copy of Opening of the Spirit Gates. We're then going to activate Opening, which will then search us for a copy of Chaos Summoning Beast. Using the effect to second normal summon, we're going to second normal summon our Chaos Summoning Beast here. Then we're going to send those two copies to the graveyard in order to go into a moon, link that moon off for a Requiem here. We'll then activate the effect of Requiem, tribute it to summon a card, a Fiendsmith card directly from our deck here. Summoning the Lacrima, Foolish Engraver. Engraver, shuffle back the moon to summon. Either, of course, you can go for the Caesar route here, or you can just go for the sequence route. I think the sequence route is perfectly fine in this opinion. Just instances is typically what I go through when I don't have a Lotus. Activate the sequence effect in order to shuffle back our 3 copies of our Light Fiends. In order to make a copy of Desiree. We'll then link those 2 off in order to get a copy of Ogumday. Ogumday will activate, summoning back the Desiree, equipping it, and then also equipping Sequence to it. Now, there's different things you can do here. Obviously, if you have any kind of extension here, you get a second body, as well as the revive off of this thing, in order to go into, a link or some shit. There's different things that you can do here. Obviously, it depends on what you do open. But this is the bare minimum of, if you open 0 playable cards other than a Dark Beckoning Beast, which does come up occasionally just because you are playing a lot of non-engine in this deck. You are playing a couple bricks, a ton of non-engine, so sometimes you don't open a good hand, really. So, this is better than absolutely nothing. And just shuffling this deck real quick, I'm just going to draw 5, seeing what we can make with the cards that we open. Of course, we're going to assume that we're going first uninterrupted, just to, for shits and giggles, to see, what we can make with our board here, of course. This has been properly shuffled. I have not stacked it, of course. Opening 5 and then seeing what we get. Not a terrible hand, to be honest. I have seen absolutely worse hands. This honestly isn't terrible in the fact that we have, 3 starters here. Activating Terraforming to add a copy of the Nightmare Throne to our hand. We're then going to activate Trapped in order to grab ourselves a copy of Lori and then pitch it to the graveyard. Lori effect to summon back. Go into Requiem right here. Requiem effect, tribute it off in order to summon ourselves a copy of Lacrima directly from the deck. Lacrima will then pitch Engraver from our deck. Now, there are of course, two different lines here. I've already showcased the Fiendsmith line. However, I think I'm going to actually showcase the Caesar line at this point. We're going to activate the effect of Engraver to shuffle back Lori into our deck. Summon it. Then we're going to activate the effect of Requiem to equip to Lacrima. We're then going to contact fuse those 2 to the graveyard in order to make ourselves a copy of Necroquip. Then we're going to overlay those 2 copies in order to make ourselves a copy of Caesar. Sometimes you will have to make Caesar just because you don't have the ability to make a Phantom in opening. Obviously, this is you want to do your Fiendsmith first to bait out anything crazy, then commit to your Yubel line in most cases. But now that we're done with the Fiendsmith line here, we're going to activate a copy of Nightmare Throne in order to add ourselves a copy of Lotus. Then going to normal summon Lotus, activate the effect, tribute it off, in order to summon a copy of Spirit directly from our deck. Spirit on summon grabs herself a copy of Nightmare Pain. We're then going to activate Nightmare Pain, popping the Spirit, in order to search ourselves a copy of Gruesome Grave Squirmer. A new chain activates. We'll activate Spirit as Chain Link 1, Nightmare Throne as Chain Link 2. This will allow us to add a Terran Current to our hand, and then we get to summon it off of Nightmare Throne, ignoring its summoning conditions. And then Chain Link 1 Spirit will allow us to summon ourselves a copy of Yubel. At this point, we can do a couple different things here. Personally, I think it's better to go for a early Phantom at this point, so I think I'm going to go for that right now. Sending those two in order to go into a Phantom. Now we can special our Gruesome Grave Squirmer from our hand and not pop any cards. And now we can go for our Unchained line. The effect of Yama on summon grabs ourselves a copy of Shavara directly from the deck. We'll then activate the effect of Shavara, popping Yubel in order to summon it directly from our hand. With a new Chain Link, Yubel will activate in order to special summon a copy of Terra Incarnate from our hand, deck, or grave. Then, at this point, we can of course go for our Unchained Soul of Rage. When Shavara is sent to grave, we can of course set that Unchained Trap directly from the deck. So we'll set Abomination. And at this point, there's a couple different things we could do here. Of course, if we have literally any kind of extension, which we actually do on the fact that we have Squirmer in our grave. So then we'll banish Squirmer in order to summon a copy of Yubel directly from our graveyard. Then we'll link Yubel, Terra Incarnate, and Rage in order to go into a copy of Aobao. And I think that's pretty much what we can do here. We can of course extend a little bit further by using Aobao, pitching a card to summon something from our grave. However, I don't think we particularly need that really. So I think we're going to set our Imperm in the middle column and then pass to the opponent. During draw phase, of course, summon back the Rage. And then we have a pretty decent board here. Looking at what we have, I'm not going to count the Imperm as an end board here. But pretty much we have the Caesar, of course. We have the Nightmare Pain, forcing them to attack into our Yubel monsters and forcing them to take damage. We have the Phantom of Yubel. We have the Rage, which can get us into a SP Little Knight. We have the Aobao here. Of course, the Nightmare Throne. If we happen to pop a Yubel card, then we can return that Phantom back to the extra deck here. Which is a pretty decent end board, if I do say so. We can do one more test hand and see where that takes us. Alright, after shuffling for a little bit, we're going to cut the deck and then see what we can do with this. Not a terrible opener. We of course have some different things we can do. Of course, we don't want to really commit to the Dark Summoning or Dark Beckoning Beast line, just because it is very susceptible to any kind of negate here. However, I think the best possible option we can do if we want to go into Dark Beckoning Beast line here is, of course, going for Tract first. Tract will add a copy of Lori to her hand. And then pitch the Lori, effective Lori to summon back. Link that thing off for a copy of Requiem, Tribute, in order to summon a copy of Lacrima directly from our deck. The effect of Lacrima activates to send a copy of Engraver directly from our deck to the grave. Then we're going to activate Engraver, shuffling back the Lori, in order to special it from our grave. We'll then link those 2 copies off in order to make ourselves a sequence here. Sequence will activate, shuffling back the 3 Light Fiends directly into our deck, in order to special ourselves a copy of Desiree. We'll then link those 2 Fiendsmith cards off for a copy of Day. On the resolution, we'll activate Day to special Desiree, equip itself to it. On the new chain, we'll activate Sequence to equip to it. And now we can actually start playing our Yubel cards. We're going to activate Opening of the Spirit Gates in order to add ourselves a copy of Dark Beckoning Beast. We're then going to normal summon our Dark Beckoning Beast, activate the effect in order to search ourselves for a copy of Chaos Summoning Beast here. Our second normal summon will then, of course, summon the Samsara D Lotus, activate the effect, tribute it off in order to special ourselves a copy of Spirit directly from the deck. The effect of Spirit activates in order to grab ourselves a copy of Nightmare Pain. We'll then activate Nightmare Pain, popping our Spirit in order to grab ourselves a copy of Gruesome Grave Squirmer. With a new chain, Spirit will activate, which summons a Yubel directly from our deck. We'll then activate Gruesome Grave Squirmer, summon it, pop our Yubel. With a new chain, Yubel will then summon the Terror Incarnate. Then we can link those 2 off for a copy of Yama here. Yama on summon searches us a copy of Shavara. I think at this point then we're going to go into our Phantom of Yubel here, shuffling back the Terror Incarnate and the Lotus into our deck, in order to summon the Phantom of Yubel. Next up, we're going to activate Squirmer, pitching it in order to summon a copy of Spirit from our grave. We're then going to activate Shavara, popping the Spirit in order to summon itself. On a new chain, Spirit will activate, specialing that Yubel directly from our grave. Then we're going to send these 2 to the graveyard in order to grab ourselves a copy of Rage. Shavara, when it's sent to grave, we'll set ourselves a copy of the Unchained Trap directly from our deck. There's a couple different things that we can do here. Of course, we can go for the Ao Bao line, because we also have an extra revive off of this thing. But ideally, I would like to go for the Vardros, just because it's a pretty decent card here. Thinking about what I'm going to go for the line right now, the Ao Bao is a very solid line, but also I like the Vardros line a lot more. Just because it's a very strong Omni-Negate, and shit like that. So I think I'm going to activate the effect of Opening to pitch our Chaos Summoning Beast in order to summon a Spirit of Yubel. We're going to overlay those 2 for a copy of Vardros. And then we can actually go into a Ao Bao right now if we so want to. And of course use the Phantom of Yubel. It's a little bit of a it's a little telegraphed for shit like Bis Seals and all that, just because Phantom of Yubel is a very big target right here. But we're going to summon the Ao Bao, then we're going to activate the effect to pitch 1 from our hand, send it to the banishment zone, and then summon the Phantom back. And then on the end phase, we're going to summon our Ao Bao back, and then pass to the opponent. This is a pretty crazy ass board here. This is pretty much almost like maxed out power level right now. So of course we ended on the Desiree with 5 negates. It's at 58,000 attack. It also can't be targetable and all that. We have the Nightmare Pain, the Unchained to summon back the Rage, which can make us an SP. We have a Omni Negate and a Pop here. We have the Albao, of course. We also have the Phantom of Yubel. Ideally here, you want to activate your Veldros first, and then you want to activate your Phantom of Yubel. So you have something to... so you can send a Spirit directly from deck, and then summon the Yubel that you discarded as cost off of that. But yeah, this deck is super easy to learn. It is pretty much like, as long as you know your end board, kinda, what you can make with it, this deck is very easy to navigate and play, in my opinion. It's not super complex. You are pretty much trying to do the same thing pretty much all the time with slightly different end boards and everything. But yeah, this deck is pretty fun. I love this deck. It's, I don't want to say super cheap, but it's like, it's as cheap as it's been in its entire lifespan so far, so I think it's worth picking up. It is a pretty fun deck. It does play kind of poorly in Terrazium. Any deck with a bunch of continuous cards that need to go off plays very poorly in Terrazium. But yeah, this deck profile and combo guide. Let me know what you guys thought about it, and my thanks for watching. Yeet.